odd time. My name is Jed Untereker. I'm an assistant county attorney, head of the civil division here in El Paso. County attorney's office represents many different entities here in El Paso County, both county entities, but also semi-governmental entities. So say UMC is represented by the county attorney's office, as well as Emergency Health Network. EHN, Michael White is the chief legal officer for them, and he's here. They are also represented by the county attorney's office. So, not only has our office been affected both professionally or personally, but also professionally as we've had to respond to the August 3rd incident, and we've had to do that in really many different ways. Just to give people a heads up or an idea of what we have to do, we have to deal with grants. We deal with contracts with third parties. We deal with PIA requests to the medical examiner's office and the sheriff's office. We deal with potential deceptive business practices claims that may come up. We also deal with the court system, the clerks, and the waivers of fees and costs, which has already been mentioned. I want to go into a little bit of detail on the waiver of fees and costs that have been talked about by a couple people here today. It actually came about from us trying to figure out what to do that weekend of August 3rd. There's no manual on how you react to this and what you're supposed to do, and I think many of us in the county attorney's office spend our time on Google trying to ask that question. What do you do with the mass shooting? One of the things Joanne Bernal did, our county attorney, is speak with the county attorney from Wilson County, which is where Sutherland Springs is located. And you may remember back in November of 2017, there was a mass shooting at the First Baptist Church there in Sutherland Springs. 26 people died, and we reached out to him, say, hey, can you help us? What were the things that you guys did or did not do that you would recommend to us, as the county attorney's office to do here in this situation? And the two big things he told us were, one, mobilize pro bono legal support. So that's why it's great to be here. And I think we spoke with Dan and spoke with Beto, either Monday or Tuesday after the incident, and everything was already in motion and being organized. The second was to quickly waive court fees and costs, just so victims, survivors could deal with all the legal actions and everything we've been learning about today, the obvious and the not so obvious, to just assist with that process. And it just made it a lot easier for not only pro bono attorneys but also the victims involved. And what we quickly learned was that waiving fees is not as easy as you might think. And everyone just seems to say, hey, Commissioner's Court, do an order. Well, Commissioner's Court cannot just make an order and waive filing fees, is what we found out. If you look at filing fees for the probate court or for civil family law cases, it's actually made up of many different little fees that all are statutorily authorized. Except for, I believe, real property, there's no specific authorization that says, Commissioner's Court, you can waive these fees. And if you don't know, counties' power is somewhat weak. So we only have the power that's given to us by the legislature. And juxtapose that with the city, which has the power that's not prohibited. This is in general, not prohibited by the legislature. So for example, fireworks, that's why the county cannot ban fireworks, unless in very specific situations, but the city can. We have no authority from the legislature to ban fireworks. Digressing a little bit, a bunch of people have asked about gun control. Well, here in Texas, there's actually a preemption statute where municipalities and counties are specifically prohibited from regulating the possession and registration of guns. So That's an example of where a municipality like the city would be unable to act in a particular area. So while the county does not have the power to waive fees and costs, the judiciary does. And so in looking at this problem, we saw the use of the pauper's petition, which is actually the inability to afford court costs and fees waiver, as the quickest way to do it, because we wanted to provide an avenue that could be accessed immediately by victims, but also the most legally appropriate for what we thought is most situations. For those that don't know, the inability to afford costs petition and process was changed drastically in 2016. So now, a bunch of different changes. One, clerk's office cannot reject a pauper's petition. They have to accept it, and there's ways that it can be challenged, but they have to accept it. Two, the name, the actual name of the pauper's petition changed. So, it used to be inability to pay costs, but it was then changed to inability to afford costs. And I forget, I think someone was talking about it earlier. It might have been Judge Chu about how, actually I think it was Bernie, I think about how someone may have the money in their bank account to actually pay the costs, but that doesn't mean they necessarily can afford the costs, given the current circumstances. And if you look at the standardized form for this pauper's petition, there's actually a place where you can supplement the form and give extra, kind of extraneous circumstances that are reasons as to why you are requesting the waiver of these costs and fees. And one of the examples of what would be included there, coming directly from the Texas Supreme Court and the legislature, are things like family emergencies, things like unique medical expenses. And based on our reading of not only the rule, and this is again 145 of the Rules of Civil Procedure, but also the notes, it would apply to victims, both in spirit and in text in this situation. And so that was our recommendation to Commissioners Court, to different judges that we've spoken to, and obviously the final decision rests in the hands of the judge. They're the ones that are going to make the determination. But the county is certainly not going to be objecting or challenging these these petitions. In fact, we are encouraging it. Too, they're also being tracked. So not only the judges are alerted that these particular legal actions, whatever they may be, are related to the August 3rd incident, but also it allows us to track them and figure out whether or not there are funds available to be reimbursed in the future for the waiving of these costs and fees. So that's the direction we're going. The kind of the big question that I think Jeff was kind of touched on before is scope, and that's something that needs to be worked out. How far do you go? How far removed do you go in waiving fees and costs? It's very fluid. I know it's being discussed by the judiciary. I would expect at some point, we will, draw a circle and decide who goes in, or the judiciary will, who goes in and who doesn't. But at least in talking with Wilson County, that did not seem to be a problem that they encountered as far as abuse of waiver of cost and fees. So that's a little bit about what we've been doing. Again, we're involved in so many things related to this incident. If people have further questions, I'm happy to stay afterwards. And then also too, if people have suggestions on things that our office can be doing, that the county can be doing, we'd love to hear them as well. And so, please feel free to contact me, and I can give my information out afterwards. So, again, thank you to the Bar Association, thank you to Trala for putting this together, and to you all for sticking around to the end.
Okay, thank you so much.